Come and let our swelling song mount like the whirling wind, as it meets our singing throng so blithe of heart and mind. Care and sorrow now be gone. Brothers in song, sing on. Brothers, sing on, sing on. Youth is a wandering troubadour, sailing the singing breeze, wooing the maid on a distant shore, over the tossing seas. Stealing like the stars above, is there still a song of love? Brothers, sing on, sing on. Errant minstrels, thus we greet you, list to our voices strong. With glad and open hearts we meet you in our festival of song. Care and sorrow now be gone. Brothers in song, sing on. Brothers, sing on, sing on.
Good evening. Welcome to Brothers in Song. See if I get this right. Brothers in Song is who we are. Brothers Sing On is what we just sang. I say it wrong all the time, and they never miss an opportunity to tell me that. I'd like to thank you all for coming. Welcome you here. I am Ben Osborn. I'll be here all evening. I don't know. This week we just celebrated Veterans Day, and if you don't mind and you are able, people that have been in the service, if you would stand, please. I'd like to recognize you. Veterans. Thank you. And thank you for your service. In honor of that, we are going to do a patriotic medley called An American Tribute.
Oh, beautiful
This next section is the sacred section of our concert, and she's already coming up. We're going to call up Sally Madison to play flute along with us. The first song is The Lord's Prayer. That's music by David Childs, lyrics by... never mind. Following that will be a song called Grace, which is the text to Amazing Grace, with the tune from the folk song The Water is Wide. Following that is Prodigal Son, which is, we did this last year, but we just like it. We use it as a warm-up. It's one of my all-time favorite rounds, and so we thought we'd put it back in, mainly because a lot of them identify with the prodigal son. And so we're putting that back in. And then following that will be a traditional spiritual. I'm going to sing When the Spirit Says Sing, with soloist Fran Pagliarulo and Jill Maurice joining us for an extra set of hands at the piano. Most of you probably remember poems from your childhood. I remember one from 5th grade, and it's kind of words that I seem to have lived by since then. I'm even going to share it with you. It says, "They said it couldn't be done." I think that's the title. "They said it couldn't be done, but I laughed and got right to it. I tackled the job that couldn't be done, and my gosh, I couldn't do it." So, yeah, I've kind of used that through the years. Anyway, why am I talking about poetry, you're wondering, and that is a good question. When I was choosing the music for this program, I came across a song that was a famous poem by a famous poet, and it had been set to music. And then I came across another one that was a poem that had been set to music. And I started thinking, there may be more. And so I started looking, and I came across quite a few poems that had been set to music. And so I chose those for this concert. And we're going to do a series of poems that have been set to music. And I'm going to give you a little bit of history. I'll try not to make it too much here, but just so you know a little bit about either the poet or the poem. The first one we are doing, this is Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. He was born in 1807 in Portland, Maine. He attended Bowdoin College and graduated in 1825. During his college years, his poems were already appearing in several national magazines. He was especially good at languages and was offered a professorship in modern languages if he would study in Europe. While he was in Europe, he learned French, Italian, and Spanish, but he never stayed very long at any one university. When he came back to the United States in 1829, he became a librarian and a professor, but he disliked his job and was soon offered a professorship from Harvard, along with a chance to travel once again. This time he visited Sweden, Germany, England, and the Netherlands. After the death of his first wife, he moved to Heidelberg, Germany, where he was greatly influenced by the German Romanticists. Later, he returned to Harvard and there was in charge of the language program for 18 years. The death of his second wife resulted in his writing many of his most famous poems, such as Paul Revere's Ride. Longfellow died in 1882 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. He has been said to have been the most popular American poet of the 1800s. His poem, The Arrow and the Song, has been set to music by Joseph Martin. And the poem is about the journey of life, emotions, and the rewards that time may bring.
I shot
A.E. Housman, an English poet, was born in 1859 and died in 1936. He is the author of the famous book, A Shropshire Lad, which is a cycle of 63 poems. First published in 1896, the book sold slowly. However, a few years later, it started striking a chord. Housman was surprised by the success of the book, thinking that its deep pessimism and obsession with death might not have a large appeal. Imagine that. But with its depictions of rural life and young men's early deaths, the book caught on during the Boer War and increased in popularity during World War I, becoming a bestseller. Two of the collection's more popular poems, When I Was 1 and 20 and Loveliest of Trees, The Cherry Now, have been set to music by Richard Nance. He's a professor of music and conductor at Pacific Lutheran University in Tacoma, Washington. We will sing the two songs without a break between. And now, try to remember when you were 21. Try to remember how old you are now.
When I was 1 and 20, I heard a wise man say, give crowns and pounds and guineas, but not your heart away. Give pearls away and rubies, but keep your fancy free. But I was 1 and 20, no use to talk.
Stephen Vincent Benet, born 1898 and died in 1943, was an American author, poet, short story writer, and novelist. And he's best known for his poem, John Brown's Body, and his short stories, The Devil and Daniel Webster, and By the Waters of Babylon. The Roman myth, the rape of the Sabine, he adapted into his story, Sobbin' Women. And his story, Sobbin' Women, was later adapted into the musical, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. The poem that we are using, it's called Southern Ships and Settlers, and it's written by Stephen and his wife, Rosemary. It refers to the ships Godspeed, Discovery, and Susan Constant, and the settling of Jamestown and the South in general. In the song, the word bark is used, and not B-A-R-K, B-A-R-Q-U-E, and I mentioned to the group, I had looked it up and promptly forgot what it was. So someone brought in some information for me to let me know what it was, and I thought I would share that with you. A bark, and I'll just read what he gave me. A type of sailing vessel with 3 or more masts, having the foremast rigged square and only the aftermast rigged fore and aft. Yeah, it didn't help me a lot either, but luckily he did give me a picture, and so I thought I would share that too with you. Maybe you want to pass that around. Anyway, it's up here if you want to see it afterwards. It's just really a nice ship. But anyway, it's called a bark. This has been set to music by John Levitt, and it will feature 2 soloists, Mike Gwynn and David Lance. Our final song in the poetry section is a poem by Walt Whitman. And when I went online to look up Walt Whitman, there's an extensive amount of research on this. So I didn't know what to leave out, and just get comfortable. And Walt Whitman was born in 1819 and died in 1892. He was an American poet, essayist, and journalist. And I'm just going to go with the song. If you really want to know about Walt, look it up online. There's a whole bunch of information. The poem that we are dealing with is called "O Captain, My Captain." And the poem, written in 1865, is an elegy to honor Abraham Lincoln, whom Walt Whitman admired greatly. There are a lot of words in here, and and it's complicated sections, and I wanted the guys to memorize this one, and so that we could watch on that. But memory's a funny thing. Just a little example of what I mean. The other night, my wife and I were walking through our neighborhood, and we came across a couple of our neighbors, and so we were walking. The ladies were up ahead, and I was walking with the gentleman. And he said to me, "Have you been to that new restaurant in Leesburg?" And I said, "Oh, what's it called?" And he said, "Oh, shoot. What's that flower that's red and has the thorns?" I said, "Rose?" "That's it. Hey, Rose, what was the name of that restaurant we went to last night?" And pretty much right then and there, I decided not to trust our memory. So we will go ahead and use the music on this one. The poem, "O Captain, My Captain," it alternates between joy at the ship's success, and the ship is America, and the battle is the Civil War, and sadness over the death of the captain, who is Abraham Lincoln. And this song features soloist John Rogerson.
Captain, our fearful trip is done. The ship is weathered, every rack, the prize we sought is won. The port is near, the bells I hear, the people all exulting, while follow eyes the steady keel, the vessels grim and daring. But oh, heart, 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 oh, the bleeding drops of red, where on the deck my captain lies, fallen cold and dead. My captain does not answer, his lips are pale and still. My father does not feel my arm, he has no pulse nor will. The ship is anchored safe and sound is
Those of you that have been to our concerts before have noticed that our accompanist, Jane Dunn, has changed dramatically. In fact, she's changed all the way up to Auburn. But we are very fortunate and grateful to have David Flanagan as our accompanist this year. And David is no stranger to Northlake. At this point, we'd like to showcase David a little bit and let him play a piano solo for you. And the piece he's going to play is St. Louis Blues, St. Louis Blues. We'd like to thank North Lake Presbyterian Church for having us here. We'd like to thank you for coming this evening. Our final selection is a medley of Broadway show tunes. And being a former teacher, I can't pass up an opportunity for a quiz. So I'm going to tell you the songs that are going to be in this medley and just call out the musical that it comes from if you know. The first song will be Willkommen. Cabaret, correct. If I Were a Rich Man. Bring Him Home. Luck Be a Lady. They Call the Wind Mariah. Paint Your Wagon is correct. All right. No one will have to stay after the concert for remedial help. It appears you passed the quiz. It's called Leading Men, Songs That Stopped the Show. And soloists in this medley will be Sam Rosowski and Jack Strite.
Lord, who made the lion